So, the one thing I like to take a look at is influences a little bit. There are other methods of accomplishing this sort of goal, and so my favorite to think about are 19th century Japanese woodblock prints. So I have some pictures here to show, and I'll show this one here. This is one of them. This artist was Hiroshiga the second, I think. Second or third, I'd have to go and look at my notes. And in here, he does diminution of size. You can see it here, it gets smaller. And he has overlapping forms. And so those two things, and a little atmospheric perspective, his colors in the distance are different from his colors up close. He uses this beautiful blue ink. And this is one of those works. So in the 19th century, these marvelous images started to appear. Now, Hiroshiga, there are a couple of famous artists. One of them is Hiroshiga, again, if I'm mispronouncing his name and you know better, please tell me. Also Hokusai, and Hokusai is famous for the big wave of those that era. So these are all 19th century prints, paper prints, that were done in Tokyo, actually, is where these artists are from. So again, the same technique that Hiroshiga III used. Now, this artist was the son-in-law of this artist, and when he divorced his wife, he changed his name back to whatever it was before. So I think he was the second. Anyway, that was a typical custom of the time. And this one, I'm going to come back to that one in a second. This one here, he's also using the rain, right? So these are woodblock prints, which means a couple of colors. Look at this beautiful blue that's down here. I'm sure the original prints had a color almost the same as that. This ink was developed around that time in Japan and became very popular in these prints. These prints were done rapidly and cheaply. They were sometimes used as wrapping for goods that were then shipped to Europe. And they got there, and the European artists started to become interested in those. You know, Japonism is the thing that followed. But then some of the artists became really interested. So here we have this particular print. I've got something different there. And here we have this book. So this side is what I want to show. Do you see here? That's the same as that. Their colors are different because of the printing. But the one on top here was Vincent van Gogh's version in oil on canvas of this woodblock print. There are 2 or 3 specific prints from Japan that were painted by artists. I think Van Gogh did 2 of them. They were very interested in these because their approach to creating these pictures and putting these things together was different than their own approach. So, and what else did I have saved here? Oh, well, I have this one that I showed you already with the rain on it, and this here is here's Hiroshiga's version, and here is Van Gogh's version. Very similar. Well, not just similar; it's a copy. It's copying. And so let's see what else have I got here. I thought this one was interesting because of the atmospheric perspective. These mountains in the distance, and also because of the length of it. If you've ever seen any of these in a museum, some of these are quite long and quite wide, and sometimes on rolls. I've seen them at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco looking like that. And this depth is created by overlapping forms and by changes in color. The mountain that you see is usually Mount Fuji, usually always Mount Fuji. The bridge theme, also quite a popular theme here. Another bridge, a little longer, Mount Fuji in the background. But the colors of the sky and all of that contributes to the illusion that is created of depth. I'm also interested in this one because, can you see that one without glare? Some trees are coming in front of this. This is the Temple of 500 Arhats. Arhats are images. I guess they would have been figures, statues of various kinds of people and forms. And if there are hundreds of them, you could go to the temple and you could see someone that looked like your ancestor. And then you could pray for them, remember them. So here you have, the painters of perspective drawing from Europe are now influenced by the Japanese. So there is a little overlap. And so it's hard to say that there's anything specific in any of that. How are we doing here? Okay, great. So I have a couple of other examples that are just sort of in-between examples that I wanted to show in reference to that. These are paintings of the West, but they're more contemporary, modern paintings of the West. This would be a book that comes from the Palm Springs Desert Museum, which preceded the Palm Springs Art Museum. And in this one, I'm showing this one because of the use of colors, is how this artist depicted that idea of distance. And I wanted to show this one here because this is similar, the bird's eye view is similar to the three-point perspective that I showed you in that earlier book. So here it is used in a painting rather than just an architectural drawing. So, so there's that. And then for any Palm Springs Art Museum friends, this piece, which I'm not sure if it's still hanging on the second floor of, or the third floor of the museum. But again, this curvy line that goes back and goes to that mountain that creates that path and gets smaller, that's part of how you look at this, and it registers in your mind that it's far away. There's a little boy here, but things are far behind him. So, of course, this is a lot more of a complex piece than just that. But this is also using some of those ideas. All right. And then a little sip of this. I've always loved Art Deco, and I think the drafting that I always did reminds me of that. So here's a book on Art Deco. And here's a perspective drawing of a skyscraper. I would think they'd be very challenging to draw, but perspective drawing is done with tools. You just have to know the formula. But here are some paintings also. A poster of Paris. And here, there's another attempt at making us, of kind of scrambling with our brains in terms of what we're looking at, and scrambling with the idea of depth and distance in a work. And here, a little more straightforward, the trains. I always love these kinds of things, reminding me of things that we see from Berlin, and this is from Berlin. And then I have, I think I have a couple of pieces in here. I'll just show this one, I think. Again, everything goes down to this point. So if someone's drawing something or using these techniques of perspective drawing, they're their point can be anywhere along the way. Little architectural thing, and just some fun dancers. Okay. So I have one little homage to Picasso.